Okay, so tonight we're going to continue our discussion about mindfulness practice and how it may help us become happier or give us a better sense of well-being. So if you look at surveys done around the world, and it doesn't really matter where, it's North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia. When people are asked what are the most important things for them and asked to rank them, usually being happy is amongst the top two of the things that people feel that are most important. So it's very interesting that despite the importance that we attach to having a sense of happiness, that most of us don't really feel that happy in our lives. And so the question that we're going to ask tonight is, what are the things that we think will make us happy? And do they actually make us happy? So just to recap, the way that we will kind of think of happiness, and there's no need actually for me to define what happiness is, because you know what it is when you feel it. You know what it is to feel happy when you feel happy. But just for the purposes of this discussion, it's an experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being, and it's combined with a sense that your life is good and meaningful and worthwhile. So it's a wider definition than the momentary spikes of happiness that we usually think of as being, I'm happy, you know. And sometimes we do confuse pleasure with happiness, and we then start to equate the sensation of pleasure as being happy. And if that happens, then we tend to start to look for these momentary dopamine hits of happiness, and then that becomes kind of pursuit for us. Maybe we indulge in certain things so that we can get this like dopamine high. But that's not what I'm talking about. So it's just this experience of joy and contentment. It's more long-term and more kind of long-lasting, pervasive than the short happiness spikes that you get from getting something you want. So before I became a monk, I spent about 10 years working. And when I look back at it, it was actually quite an interesting period in my life. After graduating, I was very anxious to find a job. It was quite a tough market, but after many rejections, I got offered a job. And I remember the pay was, this was in the UK, so it was £6,500 a year. So it worked out at slightly over £500 per month. And the reason I got 6,500 was that I was a graduate. I got £500 more. I remember this very clearly. I got £500 more because I was a postgraduate. I had a master's degree. The undergraduates got 6,000. So it was like, in terms of monthly pay, it was like maybe like less than £50 a month extra for that postgraduate degree. But anyway, that was the start. And although it wasn't a huge amount, I was able to pay the rent. I didn't have to go into debt, and I was able to, basically survive on it. And I think maybe even had a little bit of money left over every month that I could kind of bank in. So, but it wasn't a lot, and I thought, if I got more, I'd be happy, because a lot of my other friends who didn't do postgraduate degree and already had 1 or 2 years start. They were already earning more than I was. And I thought, yeah, I'd be happier if I was earning as much as they did. So I decided to study for professional qualification. It was hard because I was doing it while I was working. So after work, I would be studying pretty much every night and also the weekends. So I really wanted to get it over and done with. Then it took about 2.5 years. And when I did the final exams and then the result slip came, I remember my hands were like trembling a bit when I opened it, and then I found I passed. So it was this instant high. But then, funnily, it kind of, this euphoria just went away quite quickly. I thought I'd be happy for days or even weeks, because what it really meant was that suddenly I was this qualified professional. I could demand a much higher salary and all this kind of stuff. And then, you also get a measure of respect, the status from having a few extra letters after your name. So, but then this all went pretty quickly. And then, even by the end of that night, I just kind of like felt a little sense of, sense of coming down. It was no more euphoria, it was like a dull relief, But anyway, it did lead to a better job, and it turned out it was a much better job at more than double the existing pay I was getting at that time. So it was like, wow, I thought, I'm definitely very happy. But again, I didn't feel as happy as I thought it would be after getting the job offer and accepting it and, signing the job contract and everything. So, but then I thought, well, maybe I'll just get on with it, and didn't really give it much thought after that. So although I was earning really by that time, getting a lot more than when I started off with, I didn't feel any different. In fact, the stress was still there. It was probably more because there was a lot more responsibility. And thinking back, I think I was much more of an impatient person, and my views were definitely much more rigid in terms of what was right and what should be and what should not be. And I definitely had a quicker temper than before. But anyway, I think this whole thing about getting better job and getting better money, leading to happiness or better well-being, is something that is shared by many, many people. So that's one thing that I like to discuss tonight. Whether that is really true. So one of the things that we have in our mind often is we have this idea that I'll be happy when something happens, or I'll be happy if. So I'll be happy when I'm rich, or if I get married to this wonderful person, or if I get this great job, great house. When I was in Korea, this is already when I was already a monk, I decided to study Korean language so that I could, communicate better with the local Koreans. So I spent a semester at Dongguk University, and I turned out to be the oldest person then. All the others were like young men and women, in their late teens or early 20s. And they turned out to be much better students than I was, but they were much more adept at learning Korean. But I asked them, I was kind of interested, because most of them, in fact, majority of them had actually come over from China to study Korean, to get into Korean university, that to get past level 4 in Korean before they could apply for Korean university. So I asked them, what do they want most in life? What were they looking for? What were their goals or their ambitions? And every single one of them said, I want to be rich. So it was very interesting because all of them said this, and they wanted to be rich, and they were not shy about expressing this. I was like, I felt that I was the stupid one for asking such an obvious question. So that was very interesting. Now, there's a man called Billy Bob Jr., and he said these words: "It was the worst thing that ever happened to me." So Billy Bob Jr. was a pretty ordinary American. He had a normal, pretty happy life with a loving wife, Barbara Jean, and 3 children. He worked at Home Depot in Illinois, USA, and he wasn't super wealthy, but he had enough to get by, and they made things work. Then something happened on the 28th of June 1997 that changed everything. And months after this life-changing event, his wife had left him. His children said they changed from being a happy, easygoing, loving father to a moody, depressed man. And within 2 years, 2 years later, 2 years after this event, he locked himself in his master bedroom and died by suicide. So what was this event? The worst thing that happened to him, according to his own words. When we think of something like that, it must have been a tragedy, a serious illness, for example, or something really, a bad accident. What happened to Billy Bob Jr. was that he won the Illinois Lotto jackpot that night in June 1997. He won $31 million. And that was the worst thing he said that ever happened to him. Now, it's very strange because winning the jackpot, and especially 31 million, I mean, can anyone imagine how much money that is? I can't. It's something we all dream of, if we win something like that, then all our worries, we think all our worries are over. Our prayers are answered, and we can make all our dreams come true. We can buy what we want. We can buy the biggest house we want. We can buy houses for our parents, nice cars, go on great holidays, take care of the education for all our children. So why was it? It was such a, why did he think of it as being such a bad thing? So we think of having money as being something that can kind of positively impact on our happiness. So how do we know? Is that really true? We have a certain belief, and I think that's shared by most of our friends and our colleagues and our community. The more money we get makes us happier, because we've experienced, I've experienced being a student, not having money. Then suddenly when you get a paycheck and your paycheck gets bigger, then you feel less stressed. You don't have to worry about paying the rent or the mortgage or the car loan, and you can suddenly afford to buy a few nice things. And maybe if you get more money, you can afford to pay for your family, feed your family well, your children's education, and so forth. So to study this, 2 Nobel-winning scientists Danny Kahneman and Angus Deacon decided to take a closer look. So what they found was that if you don't make much money, like maybe you're getting 10 to 20,000 US dollars a year, then making more will definitely make you happier. You are less stressed and you have greater sense of well-being. But the effects level off pretty quickly. So say for example, making 70K instead of 40K does have a pretty big impact. But if you go from 70K to 150K, which is about double, there's not much difference in your sense of well-being. Even if you go up to 250K a year, $250,000 US dollars a year, there is not much difference they found in people's level of happiness and well-being. So it turns out that this kind of, not getting so much money, and then suddenly it hits about, what they found, it hits about 75,000 US dollars, that's the average. Your sense of happiness just levels off. So much more money doesn't make you happier. So it kind of flatlines. Even though you might double or quadruple your pay. But it's very hard to believe for many of us. Even myself, I find it, is that really true? It's kind of hard to believe. But that's what the science shows us, that people, no matter how much more they have, don't have the same level of increase in their levels of happiness and well-being. And the other interesting thing is that people shift their goalposts. So one of the things that they found was that, say for somebody who's earning 10,000, you ask them, how much do you think it would take to make you feel happy? They would say 50,000. But if you ask somebody who's earning 50,000, how much do you think, would you be happy now? Are you happy now? How much do you think would make you happy? They'll say 150. So we keep moving the goalposts. So there's a very interesting man. He's a psychotherapist named Clay Cockrell in New York. And he has a very interesting job. He basically gives counseling to the super, super rich, kind of like the 1% of the 1%. So his way of giving counseling is, they call it a walk and talk. So you find him walking with his clients through Central Park in New York and talking with them and talking through the issues. So, and many of his clients, he charges quite a lot, I think. I can't remember exactly how much, but a lot of his clients come to him through word of mouth recommendations. So you think, why would the super wealthy, and remember this is like the top of the top, like, the cream of the cream, why would they have any problems? Well, it turns out they do, according to him. They have similar problems as we have in our daily lives. And you might think, for us, we think, well, they're so rich. Why should they have any problems? They should have, everything would be solved for them already. But it turns out that actually being super rich doesn't take away your problems. And it doesn't make you happier. It's not a guarantee. In fact, he said, if you have an enemy, one of the worst things they can do for them is to buy them a lottery ticket and hope that they win. Because if they do, then their whole life would probably blow up. So that's what he said. But we think, well, that doesn't sound right. I'd love to win the lottery. And we kind of dream of it, like what I could do. I could buy a new, super sports car, or, lots of nice jewelry, or designer clothes, and nice house, and all this kind of stuff. But getting all this wealth, we never kind of find it hard to see through this and realize what all this immense wealth might bring. The problems that come with it too, or the issues that come with it. You may no longer be able to hang out with your old friends who you grew up with, because your values are so different. You can afford to do everything. They can't afford to do the things that you can afford to do. And then suddenly you wonder, are my friends because they like me as a person, or do they just want my money? And then suddenly all these people that you never knew appear out of your past and become your good friends, and then they need your help. So then you may have to worry about, how safe are my family, my wife, my children, or my husband? How safe are they? Because suddenly you have all this wealth and then somebody might want it. So, and the other thing that we are not so aware of that he highlighted was that these super rich have a lot of guilt with them. They also buy into this idea that wealth should bring happiness. But then, I'm so wealthy, I've got 100 million. Why am I not happier? Why do I still have these feelings of sadness and happiness, or these anxiety or whatever? So they feel guilty about that. And there's no one they can really talk to about, except there are 1%. And there's very few people like that. So that's why he gets a lot of clients, because he's somebody they can talk to who won't judge them. So also what he found was that the super rich also have fallen to this thinking of, if I have more, then I will be happy. So someone who has 100 million and is not feeling that happy will think, if I only have 200 million, then that'll do it for me. So if, I'll be happy if. That's the common thinking fallacy, I would say. Or he actually knows a guy who actually is has a wealth of 500 million. And then this guy told him, once I become a billionaire, that's it. Everything, it'll take me to a completely different level. I'll be, super happy when I get that. So we can see that we tell ourselves this particular story about wealth and how it will make us happier. But we don't see that actually those people who are wealthy are not much different to us in terms of their sense of well-being and sense of happiness. I mean, of course, we don't see them because, if you're a regular person like me, you don't really meet so many super wealthy. But if you do, just, observe, are they much happier? Are they sort of as you would expect, in relation to their level of wealth? If we expect, because when we're young, we didn't have much, and then as we get more money, our problems are less. We don't have so many issues with paying for stuff. We have less stress. We have better ability to financially support ourselves. So we equate having more money with greater sense of well-being. So we think of this as a straight line relationship that continues to infinity. So the more money I have, more financially better off I have, the happier I will be. And it will continue like that. But we never realize that it kind of levels off. So when that happens, we think something's wrong. I just am not getting enough, so I have to get more. So that's why we move the goalposts. So this is kind of like in the Four Great Vows, we talk about desires are endless. When we get to a certain level, we shift the goalposts up. We keep having more desires. They're endless. So if we start to see that, then we start to realize that, hey, something's not quite right with this picture. It actually isn't working. The formula isn't working. So what is it? So that what is the formula, or why isn't working, we will take a look at next week. But and I hope you will join us. So having wealth is one of the things that we kind of think of that makes us happy, but doesn't actually. But you can also apply it to other things, like getting cool stuff, like getting a new watch, new car, getting into a new relationship, getting into a cool new job, a dream job. What we believe is that many of these things will make us very happy for a long time. But what actually happens is that they make us a little happy for a short time. So if you like, please look at your own experience and see if that's true or not. And I'd like you to cast your mind back to what we talked about last week and this pie chart that this positive psychology researcher, Sonia Lubomirsky, and her colleagues kind of came up with, is that around 50% of our happiness is kind of like set. It's a set point. It's a genetic set point. But please remember, our genes are our disposition, not our destiny. So we can affect that with what we do. And that's what she calls this 40% our intentional activity. We can actually practice or train ourselves to be happier people, to be more contented. But the thing that doesn't affect so much is our circumstances, and that's around 10%. So that means whether you're born into a wealthy family or you're born into a family that's not so well off, you don't have much money or you have a lot of money, that really doesn't affect it as much as our intentional activity. So that's one of the things that we can work on, and practice actually has a lot to do with it, but that we will discuss later. But as long as we understand, first of all, that many of the things that we think that will make us happy actually do not deliver, that is already a very good starting point. So I think you can see that in your own experience too, whether it's money, relationship, career, anything. So I'd like to end there tonight, and thank you for watching, joining us. If you like what we're doing, please give us a thumbs up and share us. That really helps a lot, and I hope that you'll join us next week for our further discussions on this topic. So I hope you all take care, stay well and healthy, and see you next time. Thank you.